I recently did a challenge run for Wings of Liberty where I could only train the unit I unlocked in the previous mission. I had a lot of fun on that run, so I decided to do it again, but with a few additional restrictions. First off, on base levels, I can't kill anything with Kerrigan or use any of her abilities. Kerrigan is utterly broken in the campaign, so cheesing it with her would be pretty boring. I can still have Kerrigan move and complete objectives, but can't attack or use abilities with her. Secondly, I'm still allowing use of my starting units and any units I rescue in the level. Third, once again, if I manage to beat a level without training any units other than workers, I can save a unit type for a future level. Last, I can do the evolution missions, but I'm not counting these evolutions as a new unlocked unit. And that's it. I've never done this run before, so I have no idea what to expect. I remember trying a variant of it 7 years ago and quitting halfway through, so I'm expecting a rough time. Still, I'm recording this time, which means I'm more determined than ever to get this done. Let's go! Lab Rat is pretty easy. You get a ton of minerals and there are no enemy attacks, so you can build up as long as you want. I technically did have to train 6 Zerglings for the mission objectives, but I murdered them in cold blood before they could kill anything. I then trained up a bunch of drones and destroyed the Eradicator. The challenge truly begins when back in the saddle. Even though it's the second level, I think it's one of the hardest levels in the entire campaign, and one that I'm very scared of. The enemy attacks early and frequently, which means it's very easy to get overwhelmed. Without being able to use Kerrigan, I'm barely holding on and can't get an economy going fast enough to stabilize. Eventually, I discover something. The first attack wave comes in a group of 6 Marines, then a group of 4 Marines slightly later. Normally they take some time to kill a couple infested buildings outside of your base, which means they end up attacking at pretty much the same time. I can't handle 10 Marines with 2 Spines and 4 Zerglings, but I can handle 6 Marines followed by 4 Marines. I've moved my Spines to the edge of the base and put the infested structures on red before the first Marines arrive. Since the Marines aren't able to group up, I'm able to destroy them with the Broodlings, Spines, and Zerglings without losing a Spine Crawler. With this adjustment, the mission is by no means easy, but I'm able to stabilize and build up an economy. I play defensively, building up massive Spine Crawlers, some Spore Crawlers, and a bunch of Zerglings. I burrow my Lings until the Spines can deal with any Firebats or Hellbats in the attack wave, then unburrow them to ambush the rest of the attacking Terran troops. I'm terrified of moving out, but with this strategy I'm able to safely survive until my reinforcements arrive. Even with the reinforcements, the Terran defenses in this mission are really tough. Siege Tanks, Firebats, and Hellbats utterly melt my Zerglings. Thankfully, I can take time because the enemy stops sending attack waves once your reinforcements come. I advance slowly and cautiously after mining out, taking massive casualties in the process. I finally clear my way to the ion cannon and have just enough forces left to destroy it. I decide to go to Kaldir over Char, because of all the planets, Char might be the one I'm most afraid of. Kaldir, on the other hand, is usually pretty simple. Harvest of Screams, though, starts out with an unusual challenge, a no base section where I can't use Kerrigan. This isn't a timed section though, so it turns out to be pretty easy, and I play with my cat a few times while waiting for my Zerglings to regenerate to full health. The rest of the mission is pretty simple. Using Mass Queens takes a while on this mission, but I get it done without any problems. I was expecting Shoot the Messenger to be a problem, because I can only build roaches for it, and roaches can't shoot up. When the mission objective is to kill a bunch of flying units, that's a problem. Thankfully, you only need to defend a few key locations here, and Spore Crawlers are also very good at shooting up. I build up an army of roaches to defend my Forest of Spores, go out to get the bonus objectives, and then beat the level. It was actually surprisingly easy. The last Kaldir level is a non-base level, so I have a choice again. I can use the Hydralisk and have to go to either Char or Zerus. Char is the planet the campaign intends you to do first, but I'm actually more scared of Char than I am of Zerus, so I choose Zerus instead. I have Hydralisks, which are incredible, so I'm not too scared of Waking the Ancient. Normally my strategy on this mission is to build a ball of Mutalisks and destroy all the feral Zerg on the map before completing the objective, but I find that's not optimal with Hydralisks. Because I have to split up my forces in order to stop Brack from destroying biomass, I actually am pushed back with heavy losses when I try this. I then realize I can't remake Hydras because I've mined out. I retreat having killed 2 of the 4 primal hives and just defend my drones as they harvest the Quillbores. To my surprise, the enemies that try and kill my drones are a lot less dangerous than I remember them being, and I'm able to protect my drones and kill Brack. I now have Mutalisks for Waking the Ancient, so I've just built up a bunch of them and crushed the level. This is what I normally do on the level anyway, so no change here. The next level is a non-base level, so I get off of Zerus and find I only have one option remaining. It's time for Char. I'm very nervous about going to Char, but not because of the first level, which is easy. I have swarm hosts unlocked, but I don't think I even need them here. Creep is everywhere on this mission, which means I don't need to expand my tumors in order to build aggressive static defense. Therefore, I build a ton of drones to build a forest of spines and spores near her base. I lock her in and get the bonus objectives easily, but taking down her base is a different story. I try several times to break her with drones and crawlers, but ultimately conclude that that just isn't happening. My static defense doesn't have the damage output to destroy her production quickly, and she remaxes almost immediately when units in her base start dying. Thankfully, while Kerrigan can't kill anything or use abilities, I am allowing her to move around the map. Without attacking anything with her, I collect 100 eggs easily, which spawns an army of banelings that's more than capable of breaking Zakara. Since I never built swarm hosts here, I can now use them for another mission, which is good because the next mission doesn't actually unlock any new units for me to use. I map Fire in the Sky, which I can have the baneling unlocked for. The first question I have to ask myself is, can I actually use the baneling, or is it a Zergling in disguise? My answer to that is, Avisor says it's a different unit instead of a unit strain, so I'm allowing it. The second question is, can I still attack with Zerglings, or do I have to attack with only banelings? My answer to that is, it sounds like a massive pain to intentionally hold back Zerglings while sending banelings. I'm going to allow it just this once. I know, these are boring answers, but this is my challenge run, and I can do what I want. All that said, this is not an easy mission with just Zerglings and banelings. I start with only one creep tumor and no queens, which means that until I rescue a queen, I lose if this creep tumor dies. Secondly, the enemy Terran in this mission are filled to the brim with sea shanks, firebats, and hellbats. I am fighting a force specifically geared towards mass murdering Zerglings and banelings. I need to move quickly in order to get more Scourge Nests, but taking any sort of bad fight is enough for me to mine out before I beat the level. On my first attempt, I barely make it to the 5th Scourge Nest before I mine out and lose literally everything. My next attempt, I delay as long as I possibly can, to the point that when I kill the second Gorgon, it is literally on top of my lair and killing my buildings. This time though, I have a much stronger army and I managed to kill 2 enemy bases to drastically reduce the pressure they send throughout the mission. I still mine out with a small army, but I have the Zergling Reconstitution this time, which means I have just enough to clear out the final 2 Scourge Nests. The final Char mission is Old Soldiers, which normally isn't too hard a mission. However, I can only build swarm hosts, which is a problem because campaign swarm hosts are very, very bad. I've never really used them before now, but after this, I hate them with a burning passion. The range of the Swarmlings is pathetic. The Swarm Host itself dies ridiculously easily, and the Swarmlings last just long enough for them to almost attack an enemy before they explode. Before I played this, I wondered why they gave the Swarm Hosts on a defense mission, given their role as an infinite value siege unit, and now I know my answer. It's because as bad as they are on the mission they're introduced in, they're even worse on offense than they are on defense. This mission has a gimmick where every so often, Warfield will launch a nuclear missile at your troops, forcing them to reposition. Normally it's pretty easy to dodge, but these nukes actually make using swarm hosts a living hell. These units can get out of the way before the nuke lands, but they need to advance slowly to not die, and also need a defense positions to function. Every nuke forces me to retreat, and it takes a long time to reset up the position, which means that even when I'm maxed out, I advance at a glacial pace. Once I mine through the lower base and max out, I move all my swarm hosts to the gold base to try and break through the Terran's defenses there. It goes disastrously. Every nuclear missile forces me to retreat, and when attack waves come and I'm not set up, they kill a ton of my swarm hosts before I can even start to fight back. Every inch of territory costs so many swarm hosts, and after a brutally long siege, I get surrounded and overwhelmed. My next attempt, I try from a different angle, figuring attacking from the south might be the better choice. Unfortunately, I neglect to leave any defenses since I've mined out the map, which means that the enemy attack waves kill all of my production while my swarm hosts still get slaughtered. After this, I realize I need to do something I almost never do in the campaign. I need to split up my forces and attack from both sides at once. One of the big problems of the swarm host is the fact that it doesn't stack very well. My swarm hosts in the back can't kill anything when attacking because all of their swarmlings die before they reach any buildings. Their only purpose is to protect my ones in front. Therefore, cramming all my swarm hosts in one place doesn't actually help speed up their attacks. When I split my forces, the enemy is also going to split up their nuclear missiles, which means that one side will always be putting on pressure even if the other is nuked. With this strategy, progress is still painfully slow, but I am starting to break down the Terran defenses. I get through the giant Terran base on the map and I reach the final gate. Even though it's taken forever, I am maxed out right now with lots of money in the bank, so I figure this part should be easy. I send parts of my army back to get the bonus objectives before I realize I made a critical flaw. I assumed something would be easy with swarm hosts. With my army out of position, an attack wave breaks through and reaches my base, so I send half my army back to deal with it. Meanwhile, the bonus objectives are holding out insanely well, and attack waves burn through my remaining bank before I even manage to get them. By the time I've gotten the bonus objectives and regrouped at the gate, I'm down to 140 supply with 0 money in the bank. My army is back together though, so all I need to do is siege up the final objectives and push it until it dies. The problem is that the final objective is located past a narrow choke point, has a cannon on it that deals massive damage to swarm hosts, and is constantly reinforced by a ton of production that my units can't reach. I'm going insane at this point, so when they launch another nuclear missile at my swarm hosts, I save and attack instead of retreat, committing everything I have in range of the cannon to try and take it out. My forces are slaughtered as I move in, but I'm dealing so much damage to it. I get it down to 800 health before losing my entire army. Normally, I don't play live audio because I don't talk much when playing the game, but here's a clip that accurately shows my mental state at this point.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, this took forever. You're not done, Luna. What's this so hard?
I reload the save and retreat. I keep the siege up for another few minutes, and...
oh my god.
I load up a previous checkpoint and try again, slow pushing the final objective for another 5 minutes. At long last, I see an opportunity where the enemy hasn't launched a nuke, is relatively free of defenders, and I have a chance to push in with my 2 remaining gifted aberrations. I send my swarm hosts behind them and finally manage to kill the cannon. The mission was beaten with a game time of 1 hour and 9 minutes, and a real time of 1 hour and 40 minutes. 1 hour and 40 minutes might not sound too bad, but this was 1 hour and 40 minutes of using swarm hosts. This mission was not actually the hardest mission of the run, but it was by far the most maddening. I am so sick of swarm hosts by the end of this, and I am so glad to never need to use them again. The next 2 levels are non-base levels, which gives me a breather before I head to Skygear Station. I could use the aberration on this next level, but I don't think I need to. The level starts out with 4 infestors, and campaign infestors are absurd units with a ridiculously overpowered mind control ability. This level also gives you an infinite number of disposable infested Terran that will slowly swarm the enemy, and an ability that allows the infestor to damage a Zerg unit for additional energy. I take things slow pushing with the forest of spines and spores while mind controlling any Terran units that I can. As long as I don't walk my infestors into siege tank fires like an idiot and get them killed, I'm basically invincible. And I'd never do anything that... Oh right. I'm bad at this game. Thankfully, I managed to push across most of the map before I lose all my infestors, and still have enough forces to push through the Terran base. I beat the level, no combat units required. I decide to mass up aberrations for Hand of Darkness, figuring that they will be pretty strong against the hybrid. The most challenging part of this mission is the start. Without being able to fight with Kerrigan, I need to wait for as long as possible before engaging the first hybrid. As soon as I kill it, I group my units together and rescue an expansion, taking both geysers and expanding there immediately. Before droning up there though, I build up as many aberrations as possible so I have enough army to take down the second hybrid. Then when I'm done with that, I drone up and get a 2-base economy. It takes me many tries to figure out this build order, but once I do, things go fairly smoothly from there. The rescuable brutalists provide me with anti-air, and I'm able to beat the mission. At this point, I look over my remaining missions and realize I have a problem. I can only use 2 more unit types the rest of the run, the Infestor and the Ultralisk. I have 4 more levels to beat this campaign. The remaining levels all have aggressive victory conditions and a ton of enemies in them, which makes me think that it's probably impossible to beat any of them with just workers. I look over my units and realize there is one thing I could do. If I could count the Broodlords and Impalers as separate units, then I'll be able to beat the run. However, this feels cheap to me. I've already done a little cheese with the Baneling, but the Baneling was unlocked by a level as opposed to an evolution mission. Will I end this run on an asterisk, saying I did it, but it doesn't really feel right? No. I refuse. There must be something I missed. I look over the mission archives and realize something. There are more missions in this campaign than I realized that are doable with only workers. With that in mind, I head back to Harvest of Screams, which I previously beat using the Swarm Queen. This time, I slow push the Protoss bases with static defenses during the flash freezes. Progress is slow, but with this strategy, I manage to take half the map before I make a crucial mistake. I place my one active creep tumor a bit too close to a Protoss cannon, then it gets sniped by an attack wave. Since I can't create creep anymore without building a hatchery, my towers have taken me as far as I can go, so I opt for a new strategy. I wait for a flash freeze and enter the second Protoss base, snipe the spire there, and retreat. The next freeze, I try this again but with the third spire. There's still too much Protoss left for my army to get in and out, so I dive the spire and attack it with my entire army, only for the freeze to end and the spire to survive with 112 health. However, I didn't send in everyone. I used my remaining money to build up an army of drones, then sneak the drones in the next flash freeze. With the spire already damaged, my drones are more than enough to pick it off and beat the level. Swarm Queens unlocked. I now have 3 units to beat the final 4 levels, and if I can do this one more time, I can beat this challenge. I then attempt the very next level. Thinking about it, roaches really didn't do much for me on Shoot the Messenger other than allow me to get the Protoss relics. Spores and spines should be more than enough to keep the warp conduits defended. It turns out, this level is almost easier without roaches than it is with roaches. The only real challenge is getting the last Protoss relic that is located far away from my base. When the Protoss launch their last wave of shuttles, I move all of my rescued units and drones to the optional objective, while building up a massive spine crawlers near it. It takes a few tries to break this objective, but I manage it, and am able to beat the mission. Having acquired roaches, I use them immediately on Phantoms of the Void. This is a mission you can normally get Ultralisks on, so I'm not expecting a massive air fleet here, and Stukov has some anti-air capabilities for the occasional Void Ray. The Vile Roaches are also excellent at dealing with hybrid. Pretty much everything goes according to plan here, and the mission falls easily. I've reached the endgame, and the next mission, Planetfall, may actually be the toughest of the 3 for me. This mission puts you on a timer, so figuring I'm going to need units quickly, I decide to use the Swarm Queen to beat it. I'm pretty confident going into it, since the Swarm Queen is available early while hitting land and air, but I learned the hard way its big limitation. It just does not have the damage output to get through fights quickly. I actually massively struggle here. I just cannot get a critical mass of queens to avoid taking massive casualties every fight. And every time I try to actually attack an enemy base, my entire army gets killed. I never thought I'd say this, but I actually can't do this level with queens. Deciding I need a heavier hitter, I switch to the Infestor. The results are pretty messy to say the least, but effective. I lose an absurd amount of Infestors in the dumbest ways possible, but the rewards of my own battlecruisers, stores, and tanks are worth it. Once I manage to secure the bio launchers, I take out the bonus objective and crush through the last defenses. The next core hall mission is Death from Above, which isn't too bad. I try Swarm Queens on it and build up an army while Taka takes out the power links. Once the links are down and I'm maxed out, I send my entire army on a mad charge across the map, and it does just enough to beat the level. I only have 1 mission left, but this one is very different compared to the other 2 campaign finales. The last level of the Terran and Protoss campaigns are brutally challenging defense missions against overwhelming forces. They are, by far, the hardest levels of their respective campaigns, and a true test of your skill. The Reckoning, on the other hand, is not nearly as hard as the other 2 missions, and plays more like a victory lap than a true test of strength. By this point in the campaign, Kerrigan has formed the Zerg into a completely unstoppable force, and this mission puts the full power of the Swarm in your hands, and a map that's big enough to use it. This map is designed to make you feel like a well-oiled engine of death and destruction as you overwhelm the toughest fortifications with never-ending waves of Zerg. It really is a joy to play. I think they absolutely nailed this mission in terms of how it feels. Likewise, this mission was a bit of a victory lap for me. There's no epic struggle here, no absurd strategies I had to come up with in order to beat this level. I build up a massive army of Ultralisks, blow up some Terran bases, then remax and repeat. With Jim and the allied Zerg providing anti-air and spore crawlers protecting my bases, I'm able to ward off flying units without too much issue. The struggle was beating the rest of the campaign without needing to build any Ultralisks. so now that I had them here, I was more than happy to use them to crush this level. With that, the run is complete. I honestly didn't expect this run to be doable, but it turns out there are more levels than I thought that can be done without building any units. I'm not even convinced that I've exhausted the levels that are doable this way. I'm sure Grant will one day complete this entire campaign somehow with just workers, but logically I don't see a path to do it on levels that require timed objective and aggressive play. I could maybe see it working on the Crucible though, and while I think it would be absolutely horrific on Rendezvous, I could see someone doing it there too. The others I'm not as confident about, but I've seen things done that I've assumed were impossible before, so I'm not going to rule it out. The next question becomes, will we get a part 3 of the series? Is it possible to complete this series with Legacy of the Void? Honestly, I'm not sure, and I haven't attempted it yet. Maybe that will be the next challenge. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.